Bases dropped on Thursday afternoon here at SDH. And coming up in short order, Niko Moreno from the Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports will join us. And we will get Niko's thoughts on the week that was. There's plenty to talk about, obviously, on the pitch, going on right now as we speak in the live sense. It's the exhibition match involving Lionel Messi's PSG and the hybrid squad from the Saudi Arabian League with Cristiano Ronaldo. And so apparently that game has chosen the over when it comes to what you were looking at for totals. 2-2 with a red card and a Ronaldo penalty, and PSG wasted like 3 minutes before they got on the board. So you've got that match going on right now. A lot of other things going on. We have coming up in short order the Spurs and Manchester City. That's going on in the activity in the Premier League. And so it is definitely a match where Manchester City has to continue to try to keep pace with Arsenal 8 points clear at the moment. And there's that going on and a lot of other things going on. And obviously this morning it was taken over by the incredibly sad news. There's no other way to put it. Sad news that Anton Walkes was lost to us way too soon at the age of 25. And we can get into that in the Twitch pitch if you want, but with with Niko, anything is on the table when Niko pops in, and we'll just kind of go where the conversation takes us. It looks like BMO is going to be your new sponsor, your new title sponsor for the stadium involving LAFC. So that is a deal that came up in short order, I think within the half hour. And so we've got that going on. And so joining us, as always, on Thursdays with Niko, sometimes on a Friday, sometimes on Friday morning, sometimes on Thursdays, it is our friend Niko Moreno from Soccer Bar, as it is over his left shoulder and our right shoulder. Nice logo, as always. But my friend, good to see you. And I know that the news in Major League Soccer this morning caught us all, sadly, by surprise, involving Anton Walkes, and lost to us too soon at the age of 25.
Absolutely. It was shocking. And, with the news that sometimes get Twitter at times cannot be the best way to hear news. So when I first saw it, I really had to go and make sure that this was legitimate. And obviously we got the statements from both Atlanta and Charlotte directly from the clubs, and that's when it really sunk in that this had happened. And such a quality player, but mainly a quality person, someone who unfortunately I never got the chance to really interact with, but someone that I have always heard great things about, both from players and media. So definitely shocking, and I send my condolences to all those who were close to him, his family, teammates. That it has to be a huge blow. So definitely wishing them the best.
And we were fortunate enough for those that haven't had the opportunity this morning on SDH, it was myself and Nico Leafy, and we were joined by at back-to-back points. It was the play-by-play team for Charlotte FC with Will Pelagic and Jessica Charman. Jess has golden ticket status, as we say. She's long been a supporter for everything here at SDH, and so it was great to have them on. Unfortunately, it was in the situation that it was, but we got to kind of look at Anton Walkes, the person. Our folks in the Twitch pitch reminded us about his time and on his 2 tours with Atlanta United, and how when he came in 2017, he had come in from his time at Portsmouth and the Spurs Academy, and then he grew then he left and came back, and then he was, that he had grown once again when he came back for the second time, wore the captaincy, and videos were posted by Mike Conti, the play-by-play voice of Atlanta United, about Anton scoring a goal in Nashville, wearing the captain's armband. And Nick made the point this morning that when you wear the captain's armband, you kind of carry yourself a little differently. You carry yourself a little straighter, and there's always that air of confidence. And you could see that in him, and you could see that with Anton as well when he moved on to Charlotte. He was one of those guys that was brought in for year one, and under Miguel Angel Ramirez, it wasn't working. And then MAR leaves. Christian Latanzio comes in and takes over, and then Anton is one of those stalwarts that you had at the back. But I would recommend that anyone who didn't get the chance to hear the conversations this morning dial back and go and listen to those conversations. There's plenty of other things that we can talk about, and part of it is what's going on apparently in the Twitch pitch. The Messi versus, and the thing is, it's Messi versus Pitti. You know, you and Jason and I, we said this Messi that CR37. Yeah, he's a part of it, but really it's shaping up to be Messi versus Pitti. Apparently, get this, the game is 4-3 with PSG versus the all league squad, the hybrid squad. 7 goals, a red, a penalty for CR37. When this game came on the board, we didn't really know what to expect. A lot of times when we have something like this, you end up with those 0-0 games where it's just a kickabout. But apparently this one has gone beyond bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, I've not now watched it, but I've been following what's been going on. It's very interesting. It was not in the cards for me to see it. I really tried to find it, and I wasn't able to do so. But yeah, I mean, no.
Fanatis. I go FNT. Fanatis. You go to Fanatis.
Oh, okay. I got to know what you got to screw it. I should have called you, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's interesting, man. It's the new world that we're kind of living in, and you know what? It's been the biggest take on that it really has been a global thing. You know, I've been hearing in Argentina, I've been hearing in Colombia. People are actually watching, following this, some of that phenom effect whenever you get a player of that caliber. But yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, when you see something like this, I know a lot of us just sitting there going, okay, whatever the total's going to be, take the under, because it's just going to be one of the it's going to be like watching a test pattern for 90 minutes. It's going to be a promotion. Would you now, if you were a man of means and opportunity, would you have dropped the $2.25 million to get the meet and greet and the walk through and shake hands with Cristiano Ronaldo? Would you have dropped $2.25 million to do all that stuff like the one Sheikh did in Saudi Arabia? Would you have dropped $2.25 million to do the walk through and get the handshakes from Cristiano Ronaldo?
Not at all. I tell you that right off the bat, not at all. Not just because of the money aspect. Even if I had it, honestly, he wouldn't be my first choice to do something like that. I think that I could get a much better tour with Ronaldinho for maybe half that price, if not less.
All right.
Get him a couple of beers, and I'm sure that he'd be a good time in Brazil. So yeah, I'd rather get that tour. Maybe a Lionel Messi. That'd be probably the next one up for me. Yeah. So even if I had the money, it would not be in my list to blow money on.
Well, Sean Vergara, who is apparently both watching the match and watching us and responding. Sean Vergara in the Twitch pitch says, if he had that kind of money, sure, he'd drop the $2.25, because then afterwards he says that he could go hang with you for free.
Oh, hey, well, you know what? That might change things up. You know, having a little after party with the man certainly sounds like a good time.
Yeah, see, that's kind of that's what we're hunting for. Sergio Ramos apparently is among the scorers for PSG in Riyadh. They haven't yet decided on whether or not to offer a contract extension to his contract. Al Nassr is interested in one of the guys that has apparently scored for PSG against their hybrid squad today. So we'll keep an eye on that. U.S. men's national team. I wanted to get into this with you. I know that the HBO Max folks in their post-game show, they decided that, they didn't think that Greg Berhalter should have his contract renewed. I guess this is a multi-point thing that we can get into here. You had folks on their post-game show say, no, I don't think that he should. Folks who might have been on trying to figure out what their decisions were going to be with what was evolving with the Reyna family, that has turned it, into the negative. He's not in charge right now. He's out of contract. They're wondering whether or not they should renew. Anthony Hudson, who we all remember from his time in Colorado. Yeah, exactly. That's the common thought. is the man in charge for this camp. First and foremost, as you've been able to analyze, and know we don't have all of the facts, but we do have some. We have a majority of everything with what has gone on with Gio Reyna and what has been divulged and what has been said in the papers. Should Greg Berhalter be renewed as head coach of the men's national team in your mind? And would it have changed? Has your opinion changed one way or the other from the information that came out to the information on hand?
That's a complex question.
Yes,
definitely convoluted, but I will answer it like so.
Okay.
I think that the damage has been done in regards to Greg and that group, that talented group of players. It doesn't matter which way you cut it. I believe that even if Greg did not feel like what he said at the leadership seminar was going to come out, it was ill-advised. It was not what he should have done. I think that if that story had been leaked by the press, as it was going to be, because it was going to be leaked, he would be exonerated of all the negative things that have come out, because it would have not been him who, in one way or another, shared the dirty laundry in the locker room. And that's just a no-no in the world of sports, regardless of what you may think of him or not. In regards to everything about the domestic violence and things, it just seemed like it was a reach by what the Reynas, or a tactic that was unnecessary and dirty, and it was so long ago, and I do not condone any sort of domestic violence. I think that is without a doubt something that should always be criticized and should always be penalized, but in the way that it was brought out just to tarnish a men's reputation because they're not playing your kid, I feel like that whole soap opera just got so out of hand that I just don't think Greg can come back from that. I think that he had a lot of achievements. I think that the objectives were reached. I believe that the United States had the best showing they've had in their history. I've never, as I mentioned several times on this show, have never, ever, in the time I've watched World Cups, have I seen South American media talk as highly of the United States national team as I did this year in terms of play, talent, demeanor, how they just were able to really put teams on their back heels, and they were not that same old team that was just going to kick the ball and chase after it. So because of that, I think that there were good things from Greg Berhalter that had everything not happened the way it did, I would not be against rehiring him. But because of this whole thing, I don't think that there's any other way but to move on and find someone who's not Anthony Hudson.
Yeah, no question about it. I know that Anthony Hudson has been getting a lot of blowback in this. And speaking of men's national team, you're looking at a match against Serbia coming up in 6 days. You've got a match on the 28th against Colombia at Dignity Health Sports Park. We also got news that Bank of California Stadium is being transferred over to BMO Financial. So it's going to be 10 years, $100 million for them to be on the marquee. So we're going to have to get adjusted to calling it BMO West as opposed to the bank and the Bank of California. But what I wanted to get into you with when it came to the men's national team was some of the names on the list. And it's really interesting stuff. I mean, I understand, yes, January being what it is when January camp and you're not really doing a whole lot. It's just 2 matches and you're kind of, wondering, okay, who can we get to fill in this camp? Yes, there are some interesting names. You're looking at guys like Roman Celentano getting his first, Gaga Slonina getting his possibility for a first cap, Jonathan Gomez getting his second, Julian Gressel getting his first, DeJuan Jones his first, Jalen Neal from the Galaxy his first, Sam Rogers, John Tolkien, they're getting their first. But then you get into folks like Alan Senora, Alejandro Zendejas, and the Mexican National Federation got in trouble for Zendejas as a part of it. Brandon Vasquez. You're seeing some dual nationals that are getting reps for the U.S. men's national team in this camp. And I know that probably in the back of the minds of some, you want to get a lot of these guys cup tied. What was it like for you to see guys like Senora and Zendejas and Vasquez, who could go either way and go El Tri or men's national team, getting this first step at least, showing up for the men's national team where they could be cup tied and be lost to El Tri all over again?
I think it's huge. I'm excited to see all those guys, especially a guy like Senora that I would think, and I'm pretty sure he's going to end up somewhere in MLS as he right now has no team. But regardless of seeing guys like Vasquez, like Sendejas, it's something that's necessary for the United States. And I love the fact that unlike in Mexico, this is embraced. It seems like anytime you're talking about someone with a dual citizenship playing for the Mexican national team, there's always those rumors and people who are yelling out high in the skies, why are these guys with dual nationalships being able to play in the national team? There's young talent here. I love the fact that we embrace that as the United States and how inclusive we tend to be or try to be, especially because the talent is there. So I really do believe that at some point, and if it's not so already, a lot of these players, this is going to be like whenever you see a 5-star recruit from high school where you got to get that guy and you got to bring him in to just make him fall in love. And you could just lock him down, quite honestly. All he has to do is play an official game and you lock him down for life. But that's kind of what it's going to be. The scouting is going to have to be better for these types of talents. And the U.S. national team being who they are, I think it's great that they're able to just bring these guys, try them out, see if they work out, and lock him into the U.S. national team. Because if they don't want to be seeing a guy like Sendejas in the future playing for the Mexican national team, thinking, what if we would have called him? And this is something that happens a lot as well in Mexico, right? There are those that are wondering, oh, what if we should have we gone after Ricardo Pepi? Should we have gone out over certain guys? So I just believe that it's in the world that we're living in the soccer atmosphere that we're in right now in a global scale, when it comes to Mexico and the U.S., it's about who can get this talent first. And I'm glad to see that it was the U.S. first to bring them on.
And at the same time, the U20 squad was named. And one of the names on that squad was a name that you are really familiar with, Danny Leyva. Danny Leyva was announced as one of the midfielders for this particular group that's in there. And there are a lot of familiar names as well. Quinn Sullivan with the Union, both the Wolves for Tyler and Owen are a part of this. Jack McGlynn is a part of it. But once again, for those that haven't had the chance to see a lot of this young talent for the under 20 camp from the 19th to the 29th, also coming up, what have you seen in Danny Leyva in his game with Seattle and how he's been able to grow and advance at a very young age?
Hey, man, I love the softball here because, I've been watching Danny for a very long time, from the academy through the Tacoma Defiance, in training, playing against the first team, and eventually getting his shot last year. This is what I will say. Obviously, Danny left for camp yesterday. He will be joining Seattle for the Club World Cup in Spain once that is done. But in terms of him as a player, man, this is a high IQ guy. This is someone who has great vision that I think the only part of his game that coaches or teammates thought that he could improve on was the speed and the physicality component for a guy his age, and he's done that. Last season, when Obed Vargas went down, Josh Atencio was hurt. This is a guy that's been on the rise for 3 years, but had not really got his chance because first it was the Josh Atencio year, then it was the Obed Vargas year, and finally he was able to have his time, and he made the best of it, man. Every single time he came on for this team last season, he made a difference. He's a guy with a great mid-range shot. His passing abilities is one of the best in the team, without a doubt. And this year, there's been a different dimension to his game, and is the dribbling part component. His ability to just be able to take on defenders in tight spaces and then make the right decision, whether it's dropping back the ball or switching the ball, just changing the point of attack. This year, I've seen just a little bit of a difference in that regard to this player who's already very high rated by his coaches and by this team. So I think in this U20 camp, I have no doubt that he's going to impress. And hopefully he gets a lot of minutes, because there aren't a lot of talents at that age that can see the game in slow motion the way he can. You could tell that the way things move when he's on the ball, he's able to make one read, two reads, put the ball in space. Hey, you know what? Best option is to just drop it back. And that IQ is something that you don't get until you're a little bit older. So in conclusion, what I would say about Danny Leyva is that he is a tactically gifted player, technical gifted player that plays a lot older than his age. He just is been involved in the game for so long that he's just ready to play ball.
One of our contributors who helps us out with our Premier League programming when he's not in school, he's still in university, and we call him Contributor Nile. We were discussing, we were into the Berhalter discussion. Contributor Nile is in on the Twitch pitch, and he has this. World Soccer Talk was talking about how the men's national team are interested in Jose Mourinho, but don't know how much stock should be put into that. I would hope zero. What do you think about Jose? I mean, and there was also talk, I think it was for the Portuguese job, that if Jose could keep his Serie A gig and do Portugal as well, then he would consider it. I think the men's national team, though, on the U.S. side for Jose Mourinho, that is a bit of a reach.
That's a huge reach. Same as the Zidane nonsense, all of these things that come out. Which is fun, I guess. It's interesting because, I can't criticize it because this happened in South America for as long as I can. I can't remember the last time that, a coach didn't get sacked, and we were talking about Pochettino or Pep coming down. I mean, come on now. Everybody can throw a name out, but the reality is completely different. So, yeah, I wouldn't put much stock on it. I think that not even the profile fits what we have here in terms of the talent and the players. What I would like to see from this U.S. national team in the future, which is a lot of what we saw with Greg, man, ball retention and being able to build out of the back and get guys in prime positions to score and being able to develop this talent. And honestly, I don't know if Mourinho would be the guy to do so. He's more of a guy that will go in there, come up with the best strategy to win games and get you far into a tournament. And that's talking about at the club level, of course, which is very different than dealing with a national team. But yeah, I just think it's a bunch of nonsense on that end.
The Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports, Niko Moreno, Thursdays with Niko here with the West Coast kick. How many cups of coffee are you in? Do you have a cup of coffee with you?
Yeah, this is my second one of the day.
Okay, Rave Green, second cup of the day. It's pretty much what we figured.
Yes, for this time you got me pecked. So yeah, for sure.
All right. When it comes to MLS, we are in the window. We're in the January window where you've got folks trying to figure out what their rosters are going to look like and what parts of your roster you need to have filled. What I wanted to discuss from our perspective is get your Western Coast perspective. Joseph Martinez is now no longer with Atlanta United. He is now with Inter Miami. Technically, the classification involving Joseph was that he was reassigned within the league or had a request to be reassigned, and the request was granted through Inter Miami. And one of the points that we made here on SDH was the relationship between Garth Lagerwey and Chris Henderson cannot be overlooked here, because you've got a good dance partner, and the fact that Joseph has family there. You have the Venezuelan community that is there in South Florida. You don't have to deal with state income tax when it comes to compensation. All of these kinds of things that you're staring at, and Joseph Martinez now gets a new lease at Inter Miami and away from Atlanta United. Yeah,
I mean, it made sense from the very beginning. Because of his style of play, because of their relationships. And it's honestly a win-win. I mean, yes, it's a beautiful dancing partner because at the end of the day, you know each other both. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's 1 and 2 in GMs, even though I guess Garth's not really a GM anymore. So maybe number 1 is Chris. But at the end of the day, man, the situation with Joseph was done. I mean, it was over with the coaching staff. I think it was time for a change. It was a long time coming. This is a guy that could use the scenery change, and now he gets to go to Inter Miami team where we don't really know the role, but I don't think it's going to be a guy that's going to be playing 3,000 minutes. It's a guy that's probably going to be doing, a little bit of at times maybe a super sub. Maybe he's coming in with Alejandro Campana up top. There's a lot of depth there at the forward position, but at the end of the day, a guy like Chris Henderson is not going to pass out on a deal. If I get to have a guy with the potential and the high ceiling as Joseph Martinez on a deal where I don't have to occupy a DP spot, where we're sharing that buyout, I'm going to take that every single time. So I think that's what happened here. Chris saw an opportunity. Guard saw a way to move that player on into something else. Now they have an open DP spot. I'm sure searching for a player that can come in and substitute some of those numbers that Joseph had at one point. So yeah, it's definitely a win-win situation.
And when you look at what has developed here, I think that it will be interesting to see, and the comparison that I've made and others here at the network have made is that you're looking for Gonzalo Higuain in 2023, what you saw from Gonzalo Higuain in 2022. Although Joseph, we know, is going to want to be that guy who wants to clock in 2,700 minutes. He wants to be the guy that's going to be starting. It was brought up, I want to say, I think Nick brought it up here at the network, that and Nick and Jarrett both, it's like, okay, if Joseph comes out hot, then that's something to keep an eye on. But is it sustainable over an entire season because of Joseph's recovery from injury, playing in Fort Lauderdale, and is it sustainable over a full season? That, I think, is the key here with the injury coming out the other side and trying to figure out what is going on involving Joseph Martinez, knowing the garra that Joseph has and trying to have that in a new place. I think that's part of the analysis here.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the beauty of this, is that I don't think at this point there is really a set equation on how you're going to use Joseph. You're going to bring him in. You're going to see where he's at, where the knee's at, where he is conditioning wise. And the only thing that you have to take care of is that the locker room stays the same way it was last season, because that's what drove this team. That was the intangibles, is what got Inter Miami as far as they did. So as long as that stays intact and you're able to talk to Joseph and said, hey, look at what you just mentioned, John. We had a guy like Higuain, top of the class, a guy that's been amazing in clubs around the world. He decided to do a certain assignment and he excelled. Now, Joseph, is your time to do it. So because Campana has also had some injury issues, I think that there is a world where you could see Joseph starting, but I really do believe that it's going to take some managing of personnel, minutes, game-to-game stuff in order to get the best use out of Joseph Martinez. I think the system works. Having a guy like Pozuelo being part of that squad just gives him a guy that is going to feed you the ball in spaces where you do want him. He's not going to have to track back as much, I don't think, as he did under the Atlanta United way. I think he's going to be able to play more of a central role in the top of that 4-2-3-1 if they stick with that, or they've done that in the past. I think that's where the team would excel the most, and I think Joseph just fits in. So I don't think the equation is set at this time. They're just going to bring him in, see what happens. But at the end of the day, I go back to, you don't pass out on a talent like that when it comes at a discount.
All right. Last thing that I wanted to get into with you this afternoon / this morning, as we wrap up another go round of Thursdays with Niko, actually on a Thursday for a change.
Yes.
There was an article in Forbes, and I don't know if you saw it, where Forbes has a writer that focuses on Serie A, And their Serie A writer at Forbes caught up with Giorgio Chellini. Here's what
Okay.
Chellini said about Major League Soccer. Quote, "The league will be growing in the next few years. The average level's increasing a lot. The teams are prepared and the clubs are organized. Every match is sold out and the interest in soccer is rising year by year." The writer continues. He has, however, identified a limit in the status quo that he thinks is currently interfering with the league's ability to attract the world's best soccer talent. Chiellini, quote, "We need more flexibility in the salary cap, and we have to find a way for clubs that want to invest to do it like it's possible in other sports." When asked to draw a comparison between American and European soccer, Chiellini mentioned that there are unbridgeable cultural differences in the way the particular sport is perceived across the two continents. Here, meaning in the United States, the most important thing is the show. The experience starts many hours before the game, and you go to the stadium to have fun, not just for the result. Chiellini then talked about league strict financial regulations. As a result of that, he has felt firsthand MLS players operate in a much different work environment with respect to what he experienced in European soccer. Quote, Chiellini again, "The lack of relegation gives more stability and peace of mind to the clubs and fans. The pressure during the regular season was smaller, but close to the end and during the playoffs, it became higher." And this is coming from a guy, and I didn't know this. Chiellini holds a degree in economics and commerce and a master's in business administration from the University of Turin. So this is where all of this is coming from. And he says, the experience will stay with me for the rest of my life. It took me 3 to 4 months to understand the city. I'm sure that when I was back in Europe, I'll be a more informed investor, especially in sports business. So MBA holder Giorgio Chellini, what did you think about just hearing those comments for the first time? What did you think about MBA holder Giorgio Chellini and his thoughts on Major League Soccer and where it is?
I think he makes some good points, and he does go back to maybe some opinionative and more cultural views on how things are held in the States. I'm a true believer that regardless of how educated you are, as you can see in the degree, and obviously I'm no Giorgio Chellini, he's obviously he's a legend of the sport, but at the end of the day, he goes back to what he views the game as he lived it as a player, as he lived it as a kid. And people tend to have a misconception of the way fans approach the sport here, because they're not like full on riot and just wilding in the stands. And, there isn't that level of, I don't know, passion. And I say passion because at times, and I hate this, we compare passion, or we equal it to aggressiveness and insulting the players and putting this level of pressure where if the team and the club don't get to where you want, then you can just go crazy. So in terms of the cab regulations and limitations, although I really do, that with the right management, it can continue to help the equality around the league. Keeping the teams very balanced, so there isn't just 3 or 4 teams that are running away with the league every year. And it's also created a pathway for homegrown players to get a lot of play time, because the salary cap space pressures you and obligates you to use every single resource in order to achieve a goal. And that gives a lot of young players playtime, something you don't see in Mexico. And what's really killing Liga MX when it comes to that domestic talent, yes, of course, there needs to be maybe a higher cap, and you can do a lot of things with it. So there are components of what Chiellini's saying there that I can agree with, but then there are others that always go back to the way just you view the sport, and that I don't really agree on.
Yeah, you have to, and that's the key here for the young adult meaning Major League Soccer at the age of 26. You got to figure out how to manage your money. You got to figure out how to pay your bills, and make sure that you're not having to rely on your parents to sit there and continue to send you a check now that you've graduated from college and that you're now in your mid-20s. I think that you could add another DP without any kind of fear. I think that, to your point, I think that you need to increase the salary cap number. And I think that you can see as this league continues to grow into adulthood that you can sit there and expand what's going on. And there will be owners that will want to invest in something like Major League Soccer as it continues to grow. David drops in and he says the lack of relegation is more of an owner-investor peace of mind issue versus fans and supporters. Yes, supporters would be upset if they got relegated, but the billion-dollar owner investment is the issue, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those individuals. For the Snob Bureau criticism, which is not what I feel he's doing, by the way, is what the Super League was trying to do, be more of an American model. And, yeah, when you're in the Super League, as we called it, you're trying to bring the best of the best and separate yourself from everything else. But, it is the complex issue for the young adult that is Major League Soccer.
And I really do believe that, man, I think the relegation thing can work, but it doesn't define your league. I mean, if MLS has done something, is prove that there is no need of relegation for your league to develop and grow. I mean, look at where we are now to where we were 10 years ago. Look at the talent that's coming in and out of this league. It's become the biggest showcase in America. I mean, John Duran just went to Aston Villa for $18 to $22 million. A 17-year-old that was got in at 17, then brought in when he was of age. And all of that was done with the U22 initiative. So there are things that are working in order to grow this league, not just in regards of soccer talent, but as a selling league and it's a showcase piece where young talented players want to come in and be a part of. And they are now beyond and above Liga MX, and I don't care what nobody says, without the need of relegation. So that's where I just have my issues with it. Whenever somebody says, and Chellini, I believe, says, as you just mentioned, that in America it's just a show, all of that is crap. It's crap. It's not a show. These guys take it seriously every day. I mean, whenever you're with these players, you know how much it means to them. You know how much it meant for the Sounders to go win CCL. If it's just a show, just playing a show, they were able to dominate the CONCACAF Champions League. So I just think that whenever those words are used, it is with an intent to try to minimize the importance of the league. And I just take it very personally when that happens.
All right, time to cut the promo. What's going on at Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports with you these days?
All righty. Well, hopefully time will allow me to get there, but in about 45 minutes, we should be in Starfire, the last practice for the Sounders before they leave to Spain on Saturday. So we are going to have some interviews, hoping to have Raul today, ask him a little bit about what he thinks of this huge opportunity to play in the Club World Cup. And then in Soccer Bar, later on today, 2:00, you should see us there talking about everything that happened with John Duran. We had John Duran in Soccer Bar a couple of months ago, and we were able to chit chat with him, get to know the person a little bit more. So now we're excited to talk about what we kind of concluded at that moment and what we're hearing today about him leaving, although personal player agreements have yet to be reached, even though everybody and their mom has decided to announce it. So I find that very interesting as well. But yeah, go ahead and check in Soccer Bar in about 3 hours or so, and Pulso Sports in the next 45 minutes.
All right, so stop talking to me so you can go to Starfire and catch up with everybody there as they get ready for the trip to Morocco and get the miles and points heading that way for Club World Cup. Niko Moreno, as always, Orello and W on the Twitters. Thanks for hanging out for another go-around of Thursdays with Niko. Actually, on a Thursday, we'll catch up with you next week, my friend.
Have a good one, boss.
All right, it is the end of the show, which means one thing. It means I get to do this. Mucha plata, y'all. Play it safe, everybody, and we will do it again tomorrow. Once again, 9:05 is start time for soccer down here. We'll have our friends from Beyond Goals mentoring. Obviously, we'll have a couple of topics to talk about. Anton Walkes, Joseph Martinez. We'll get into that and get into everything else to get you ready for the weekend. And we'll also keep an ear out later today and possibly tomorrow. We're catching up with our friends from the Marshall Islands. A nice little feature. They're starting a national team, so we're catching up with the guy who is in charge, their technical director, Coach Lloyd Hours, and find out what's going on with there. It's another round of Thursdays with Niko on a Thursday. He's heading to Starfire. I'm heading to lunch. So play it safe, everybody. It's the end of the show. That means I get to do this. We'll catch up with you in the morning.